In today's video, we are going to discuss a seemingly ancient deity that in reality is not so ancient, but is very much active in our world today. Remember, the scripture tells us that there is nothing new under the sun. This is an important video, so I encourage you to watch all the way to the end. And also, if you have a love of biblical prophecy, please subscribe to the channel and turn on post notifications so that you are notified when I post new videos. Revelation chapters 17 and 18 are dedicated to a woman called Babylon. A detailed description of the woman is given in Revelation chapter 17, verses 1 through 6, which states, "And there came one of the 7 angels, which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration." Verse 5 gives us the name that John saw written upon her forehead. From this verse, we are going to focus on the phrase Babylon the Great. We know Babylon was an ancient kingdom and was represented as the head of gold from the book of the prophet Daniel. We also know that the Jews were taken into captivity to Babylon. But what is the significance of this city, and why does the woman of Revelation chapters 17 and 18 bear this title? We're going to examine the woman of Revelation chapters 17 and 18 from the perspective of the deity associated with her. In ancient times, cities were associated with particular deities. To discover the deity associated with Babylon, let's go to Jeremiah chapter 50 verses 1 and 2, which state, "The word that the Lord spake against Babylon and against the land of the Chaldeans by Jeremiah the prophet. Declare ye among the nations, and publish, and set up a standard. Publish and conceal not. Say, Babylon is taken, Baal is confounded, Merodach is broken in pieces, her idols are confounded, her images are broken in pieces." The deity associated with Babylon is Baal. The deity Baal can be spelled B-E-L or B-A-A-L. It's the same deity. Encyclopedia Britannica states, "Baal is a god worshipped in many ancient Middle Eastern communities, especially among the Canaanites, who apparently considered him a fertility deity and one of the most important gods in the pantheon." The worship of Baal was popular in Egypt from the later New Kingdom in about 1400 BCE to its end 1075 BCE. Through the influence of the Aramaeans, who borrowed the Babylonian pronunciation Baal, the god ultimately became known as the Greek Belos identified with Zeus. So this information tells us that Baal was also known as Zeus amongst the Greeks. Baal also goes by the name Marduk. Marduk was a god from ancient Mesopotamia and patron deity of the city of Babylon, who eventually rose to power in the first millennium BCE. By the first millennium BCE, Marduk had become astrologically associated with the planet Jupiter. Marduk was commonly called Baal in the first millennium BCE. And amongst the Romans, Baal was known as Jupiter. Jupiter, also known as Jove, is the god of the sky and thunder and the king of the gods in ancient Roman religion and mythology. Jupiter was the chief deity of Roman state religion throughout the Republican and Imperial eras until Christianity became the dominant religion of the empire. Jupiter is usually thought to have originated as a sky god. His identifying implement is the thunderbolt, and his primary sacred animal is the eagle. The Romans regarded Jupiter as the equivalent of the Greek Zeus, and in Latin literature and Roman art, the myths and iconography of Zeus are adapted under the name Jupiter. So let's recap. Baal was the deity associated with Babylon the Great. The spelling B-E-L and B-A-A-L is referring to the same deity. Baal also goes by the name Marduk. Amongst the Greeks, he was worshipped as Zeus, and amongst the Romans, he was worshipped as Jupiter. When you know the names, you are then able to identify the worship of this deity Baal in the different kingdoms throughout the world history. The woman of Revelation chapter 17 and 18 is often associated with the city of Rome because she is said to be the city that sits upon 7 mountains or hills. We can trace Baal all the way to the Roman Empire. Here he goes by the name Jupiter. In the letters to the 7 churches, Jesus tells us that Jupiter is none other than Satan himself. Revelation 2:12 through 13 states, "And to the angel of the church in Pergamos write, These things saith he which hath the sharp sword with 2 edges. I know thy works, and where thou dwellest, even where Satan's seat is, and thou holdest fast my name, and hast not denied my faith, even in those days wherein Antipas was my faithful martyr, who was slain among you where Satan dwelleth." Jesus tells us that Satan's seat was in Pergamos. The word seat is translated from the Greek word thronos, and it means throne. So we have to take a look at Pergamos and see what throne was there. Understand that Pergamos is also known as Pergamon or Pergamum. The altar of Zeus was in Pergamon. Jesus associates the altar of Zeus with Satan. So essentially, the worship of Marduk, Baal, Zeus, Jupiter all point to the worship of Satan. If you notice, you will see the names change, the civilizations change, the kingdoms rise and fall, but the deity remains the same, and it all points to the worship of Satan. Let's get back to Revelation chapters 17 and 18. The woman is believed by many to represent the city of Rome because she sits upon 7 mountains, which can also be known as hills. Remember, at the beginning of the video, I stated that deities were often associated with cities and that Baal was the deity of Babylon. We know that in Rome, Baal goes by the name Jupiter. The temple of Jupiter was located upon Capitoline Hill. The Capitoleum or Capitoline Hill is one of the 7 hills of Rome. The hill was earlier known as Mons Saturnius, dedicated to the god Saturn. The word Capitoleum first meant the temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus, later built here, and afterwards it was used for the whole hill and even other temples of Jupiter on other hills. The last statement is very important. The word Capitoleum is used to refer to other temples of Jupiter on other hills. Please pay attention. The word Capitoleum still lives in the English word capital, and Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. is widely assumed to be named after the Capitoline Hill. Remember the previous statement. The word Capitoleum is used to refer to other temples of Jupiter on other hills. Those that understand will get it, those that don't won't. When you look at diagrams of the ancient Capitoline Hill and the modern Capitol Hill, you will notice the similarity in construction. Let's go back in history for a second to the destruction of the Second Temple in Jerusalem. Remember, the Second Temple was destroyed by the Romans, and its destruction was prophesied by Jesus in Matthew chapter 24 verses 1 and 2. I have also done videos on the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70 and will post them in the pinned comments. I'm going to read an excerpt from heritagedaily.com, which states, Titus and his legions reached Jerusalem in AD 70, placing the city under siege for 4 months. After several battles, the entire city and the Second Temple was destroyed, with contemporary historian Titus Flavius Josephus stating, Jerusalem was so thoroughly razed to the ground by those that demolished it to its foundations that nothing was left that could ever persuade visitors that it had once been a place of habitation. In the ruins of Jerusalem, Emperor Hadrian ordered the construction of Colonia Aelia Capitolina in dedication to Jupiter Capitolinus and to Hadrian himself. The Romans tore down God's temple and in its place built a temple dedicated to Jupiter, which we know is the worship of Satan. The only part of the Second Temple in Jerusalem that remains is a portion of the western wall known as the Wailing Wall. The Capitoleum was regarded by the Romans as indestructible and was adopted as a symbol of eternity. Along with Eternal City and the City of Seven Hills, Caput Mundi remains as one of the most commonly used names to refer to the city of Rome. Caput Mundi is a Latin phrase which literally means head of the world. I will conclude this video with a scripture from Revelation chapter 17 verse 18, which states, And the woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth.